Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. There was no fight, no slammed door, no dramatic walkout, just a quiet Tuesday morning, the sound of the coffee pot bubbling, and me standing there barefoot in the hallway, staring into the closet, trying to figure out why half of my wife's clothes were gone. It didn't feel like cheating at first. It didn't feel like anything, just confusion, like I'd walked into someone else's house by mistake. But then my eyes found the note taped to the mirror, right next to her favorite lipstick print she always left when she was rushing. It said, "Don't panic. This is just for 1 week. I need to reset. Raina and the girls said it's time I taught you a lesson." What lesson? Was there a test I missed? I stood there like an idiot for longer than I want to admit, turning that paper over in my hands as if the back might have a real explanation. Didn't. I checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls, just an old voicemail from her the day before. "Hey babe, don't forget to feed Dobbs and maybe clean the microwave. Love you." No sign that anything was wrong. By noon, the realization sunk in. She was gone. Voluntarily. Strategically. Because her friends told her to. I'm not a stand-up-for-myself kind of guy. I wish I was. But I've always been the type to ask what I did wrong when someone slams a door. The maybe I forgot something type. The apologizer. The peacemaker. The pushover, if we're being honest. But something about the way she phrased that note, "Teach you a lesson," hit me like a cold slap in the face. I sat down on the floor, next to her empty shoes, and for the first time in my life, I felt something boiling inside me that wasn't sadness. It was embarrassment, like I was the punchline in a joke being whispered somewhere else. So I did the one thing she didn't expect. I didn't text. I didn't call. I dialed someone else. My cousin Milo, who runs a rental property business upstate. He owed me a favor from years ago when I helped him rebuild his basement after a flood. I told him I needed a place for the weekend, maybe longer. His response: "Is this about your wife finally joining that bad wives club her friends were starting?" He knew. Everyone did. Everyone but me. While Charla was off resetting. I was about to find out exactly who helped her plan it, and why my life was already unraveling without me even noticing. I didn't leave right away. I stayed in the house that night, sitting on the edge of our bed, scrolling through our old texts like some ghost haunting my own life. I kept looking for signs, hints of this plan she cooked up with her friends, but everything felt normal in hindsight. Too normal, like someone had cleaned up a crime scene. But around 2 a.m., something happened that cracked the surface. Her tablet lit up on the nightstand. She'd forgotten to take it with her. That's not like Charla. She takes it everywhere. Uses it for journaling, Pinterest recipes, group chats. I hesitated. I really did. I sat there and just stared at it glowing in the dark like it was daring me to look. And I wish I could say I was noble and respected her privacy. But no. I opened it. First, there was nothing but boring stuff. Workout apps, a to-do list with reminders like buy almond milk and call insurance. But then I found a group chat titled Wild Queen's Fire Lipstick Middle Finger. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just a spontaneous self-care retreat. It was a script, a scheme, a performance I wasn't meant to see from the audience. There were dozens of messages. Raina, Jules, and Charla, plus a fourth contact saved as C. The first message that hit me in the gut was from Raina, 3 days before she left. "Make sure you wear that red dress at dinner. It'll drive him insane. And remember, no contact. Not a single word. Let him stew in his little man cave." Then one from Jules. "I give it 2 days before he starts begging. Or crying. Or both. Bet?" I kept scrolling, and then I found one from Charla, sent the morning she left. He didn't even argue. Just stood there like a confused puppy. This is gonna be easier than I thought. That one shattered me. Not because she said it, but because she meant it. She knew what she was doing. This wasn't about needing space. This was about breaking something. Me. I shut the tablet and walked straight into the kitchen, heart racing, hands shaking. I leaned against the counter, trying to breathe. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even know what I wanted. But I knew one thing. I couldn't sit in that house while her friends placed bets on how fast I'd fall apart. The next morning, I left. I packed a duffel bag, fed Dauber, and drove 4 hours north to Milo's place. It was a creaky little rental house by a lake, the kind of place where you can hear your own heartbeat. Peaceful, yeah, but I wasn't there for peace. Milo greeted me with a bottle of something strong and a look that said he already knew why I was there. You know, he said while pouring a glass. Raina's been known to do this before. She convinced her sister to fake a breakup just to make her husband grovel. It's all a control game. They love watching men crawl. I didn't even respond, just stared at the fire pit behind his cabin. My thoughts were spinning. About the note, the messages, the dress. This C person I hadn't identified yet. Was it another friend? A lover? A setup? And that's when Milo's wife, Janice, came out holding a phone. You might want to see this, she said. She handed it to me. It was a video, and Charla was in it. Not alone. Not dressed for yoga, but on someone's balcony. Laughing, sipping wine, and sitting on the lap of a man I'd never seen before in my life. I replayed that video on Milo's porch at least 5 times, hoping anything about it would change. Didn't. Same balcony. Same man. Same stupid laugh she only used when she wanted something. The guy looked older than me, smug, well-dressed in that expensive but casual way. His hand was on her waist like it belonged there. She didn't flinch. She leaned into him, intimately, comfortably, like I'd been erased already. Janice told me it was posted on a private account she followed for travel deals and spa getaways. Turns out this guy ran some kind of luxury retreat business. What struck me more than anything was the timestamp. The video was posted 2 hours after she left our house. Not 2 days. Not after soul-searching or meditating. 2 hours. It wasn't a reset. It was a reroute. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in the evening air, watching the sun drop behind the trees and trying to remember the last time I saw her look that alive, that happy. And then I realized something horrible. She never looked like that with me. Not in years. I felt like a fool for caring so much, for wondering what I did wrong, while she was already rehearsing a new life. The part that really tore me up wasn't the man, or even the lying. It was the ease, the comfort, like letting go of me didn't cost her anything at all. Back inside, Milo was making chili. He didn't say much, just kept tossing spices into the pot like he'd seen this play out a dozen times before. "What are you gonna do?" he finally asked, not looking at me. "I don't know yet," I said, and that was the truth. Every petty idea crossed my mind. Post the video online. Call her parents. Message the guy and tell him exactly who she really was. But none of it felt right. None of it would fix the part of me that cracked. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out my old laptop and started writing. I wrote a list. Not a pros and cons list, not a plan for revenge. I wrote every single moment I'd overlooked. Every time she brushed off something kind I did. Every snide comment her friends made that she laughed at. Every "we'll talk later" that never happened. Every apology I made for things I never did. Every time I sat in silence just to keep the peace. The page filled up fast. Then I wrote something else. Something I hadn't admitted to myself until right then. I stopped being her partner. I became her mirror, and she hated what she saw. Somewhere along the way, I stopped mattering in my own marriage. I wasn't her equal. I was her shadow. And the worst part? I thought that was love. I thought that if I stayed quiet, stayed helpful, stayed available, it would be enough. It wasn't. Later that night, I did one last thing before I went to sleep. I logged into our shared cloud account. Charla never changed the password. We used it for trip photos, receipts, and personal files. I wasn't looking for dirt. I just wanted to see something real. Something I could hold on to. Instead, I found an album. It was titled "Reclaiming Me Dizzy." Inside were 27 photos. None of them included me, but he was in 5. And in one, taken just the day before, she was holding up a champagne glass. Her finger pointed at something out of frame, but I recognized it. It was a realtor's sign. Sold. That wasn't a spa trip. That was a relocation. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Smiling in that photo, glass raised, like she was toasting to her fresh start. Without me, without our home, without even blinking. The sold sign in the background wasn't just a symbol of real estate. It was a full stop at the end of our life together, and I hadn't seen it coming. Not even close. By morning, I was back in the car, driving 4 hours south to what I once called home. I didn't tell Milo. I didn't want another look of pity. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. Needed to know if the house I'd painted, repaired, and practically rebuilt over the years was really gone. When I pulled into the neighborhood, my heart started pounding. Same trees, same mailbox, but something was off. The lawn was overgrown, unusual since I always kept it neat. A for sale sign still stood in the yard, but it had a red, pending sticker across it, so it wasn't technically sold yet. That gave me a sliver of something that almost resembled hope. I parked 2 houses down and walked up the sidewalk like a stranger. My own front door felt foreign. I knocked out of habit. No answer. Then I noticed the lockbox on the doorknob. That's when I knew it wasn't ours anymore. Not really. It belonged to agents and contracts and strangers who would one day replace our framed wedding photo with something from IKEA. Still, I walked around back, hoping the gate was still broken like it had been for months. It was. I slipped through and opened the garage. The hinges moaned like they hadn't been moved in weeks. Dust filtered through the air, and there it was, my space. My world. Untouched. She forgot the garage. Everything I'd built, stacked, stored, it was all still there. My tools. The vintage pinball machine I'd been restoring. The box labeled Curtis's stuff, don't touch, that she always ignored anyway. I stood in the middle of the room like I'd stumbled onto sacred ground. And then I saw it. A binder. Not mine. It was sitting on the workbench, half tucked under a drop cloth. I opened it, expecting tax forms or home inspection notes. But no. Inside were printouts of emails. Dozens of them. Labeled. Highlighted. Dates going back months. All between her and him. The guy from the video. His name was Tyler. They met 6 months ago at a personal growth seminar that Raina had dragged her to. The same seminar she said was life-changing. Turns out it really was, just not in the way I ever imagined. There were printed messages like, "When I'm with you, I feel real again. Curtis doesn't get it. He wants things the way they were. The way he looks at me, it's like I owe him something for staying." Each sentence felt like a slow punch to the chest. But the worst was the last page, a handwritten note, hers. "He'll be fine. I'll spin it as a mental health break. Raina says he's too passive to fight it. 1 week of silence should break the pattern. He'll either beg or collapse. Either way, I'm gone. Beg or collapse. Beg or collapse." I sat down hard on the workbench, the paper trembling in my hands. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. That note wasn't just proof of betrayal. It was premeditated emotional demolition. She didn't fall out of love. She designed my unraveling. But what she didn't count on, was that I didn't beg. And I sure as hell didn't collapse. I copied every single page in that binder. Photographed it. Sent it to a secure drive. I didn't even take the original. I left it exactly where I found it. I wanted her to know I knew. That I walked into her secret and left it open like a trap she'd set for someone else. Then, just before I left, I noticed an envelope in the drawer of my tool chest. It was addressed to me. I opened it. Inside was a check. From her. Made out to me. For $14,000. Memo line. Curtis's fresh start. As if my life was a business she'd just bought out. I didn't take the check. I stood there staring at it for what felt like an hour. That number staring back at me like it meant something. $14,000. That's what I was worth to her. Not even a clean 15. 14 flat. A weird, specific amount that made me feel even smaller. It wasn't a gesture. It wasn't pity. It was a payoff. A bribe. Hush money from someone who didn't want to be the villain in her own story. I slid the envelope back into the drawer and closed it. If she wanted to feel good about walking away, I wasn't going to help her. Not anymore. By the time I got back to Milo's place, the sun was setting, and I hadn't spoken a word the entire drive. The roads blurred together. I kept hearing her voice in my head from old conversations, like an echo from a version of her that no longer existed. You always take the easy way out, Curtis. Why don't you ever stand up for yourself? You're too comfortable. That's not attractive. It hit me hard because she was right in a way. I had stopped standing up, but not because I didn't care, because I thought love meant not fighting. I thought peacekeeping was strength. I thought being steady was enough. But now I saw it clearly. I wasn't steady. I was invisible. And she liked it that way, until someone more exciting came along and told her she deserved fireworks. That night, I didn't talk to Milo or Janice. I went straight into the spare room, locked the door, and stared at the ceiling until the sky turned black. But I wasn't spiraling. I wasn't numb anymore either. I was planning. The next morning, I made 3 calls. 1 to my bank, 1 to a lawyer Milo recommended, and 1 to my friend Devin, the only guy I knew who'd ever gone through something even remotely similar. By noon, I had a plan. By 3 p.m., I had something better. Proof. Devin called back with the name of the guy in the video. Tyler Coleman. Real estate investor. Married. Lives in Atlanta. Travels for relationship workshops. I dug deeper. His wife's name was Natalie, and she had no idea who Charla was. I felt sick. Not from what I was learning, but from how long it had taken me to start learning anything at all. I'd spent years letting Charla manage the story of our life while I just reacted. Nodded. Smiled. Trusted. Now, I wasn't smiling anymore. I packaged the photos, the messages, the binder scans, and a copy of the check into a neat little folder and labeled it Reclaiming Me Dizzy. Same title as her album. I uploaded it to a secure link. Then I sent that link to one person. Natalie Coleman. No message. No explanation. Just the link. An hour later, she called me. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. I knew something was off, she said. Thank you for confirming it. I asked if she was okay. She laughed. I will be. But your wife? I hope she enjoyed the ride. Because the wheels are coming off now. It was like watching the match drop after soaking the fuse. Later that night, I got a message from Charla. The first one since she left. Did you do something? No, hi. No, I miss you. Just that. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed something I never thought I'd have the nerve to say. I did exactly what you taught me. I finally stood up. Then I turned off my phone. The knock came 2 days later, mid-afternoon. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was in Milo's shed, tightening bolts on an old arcade cabinet. Not because it needed fixing, but because I needed something to focus on. Something mechanical. Something that couldn't lie to me. The sound of knuckles on the front door was sharp. Quick. Nervous. I didn't rush to answer. Janice opened it first, and her voice, usually calm and easy, suddenly turned tight. Curtis? It's her. I didn't feel anger or even fear. I felt something colder, like watching the forecast predict a storm after you've already moved inland. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked through the hallway slowly, knowing this moment would come but not expecting it so soon. And there she was. Charla stood on the porch, wearing the same beige coat she always wore when she wanted to appear put together. Her hair was curled too perfectly, makeup done just enough to look effortless. And yet her eyes were wide. She looked rattled, unmoored, like someone who'd been told their exit plan had collapsed mid-flight. I didn't speak first. I let her squirm in the silence. She opened her mouth like she had something rehearsed, but the words didn't come out the way she wanted. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorway. About what? Her lips pressed together like she wasn't used to being questioned. I know what you did. I did a lot of things. You'll have to be more specific. She sighed. You sent everything to his wife. Wrong, I said. I didn't send it to his wife. I sent it to her. Because she deserved to know, same as me. Charla glanced over her shoulder, probably to check if anyone was watching, then stepped closer. Curtis, you don't understand what you've started. Tyler's flipping out. Natalie threatened to go public. My phone's blowing up. I've had to block 3 numbers already. I tilted my head. Sounds like your reset week didn't go according to plan. For a second, I thought she might cry. Not because of regret, but because her carefully stacked tower was crumbling. She was losing control, and she didn't know how to function without it. I didn't mean for this to get so dramatic, she muttered. Raina told me it would help. That distance would give us clarity. I laughed. Actually laughed. Is that what they're calling affairs now? Clarity? That stung her. She flinched. But I wasn't finished. You left me with a note and a check like I was some employee you were downsizing. You plotted every move right down to the silence. And now that it didn't go your way, you want to talk? I just think we owe it to ourselves to. To what? Patch it up? You already signed the papers to sell the house. You were building a new life behind my back for months. Charla, you don't want clarity. You want damage control. She looked down, suddenly unsure. I didn't know you had it in you. Neither did I said. And I meant it. The conversation died there. She stood frozen for a few moments, like maybe I'd soften. Like maybe the version of me who used to absorb every insult and carry every burden would reappear. But he was gone. She'd made sure of that. Before she left, she pulled something out of her coat pocket. A ring box. She held it out to me. I didn't pawn it. I thought maybe someday. I looked at the box, then at her. You should give it to someone who believes you. And I closed the door. I leaned my back against the inside of it, my heart pounding but steady. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control of my own story. No more notes. No more silence. No more begging. Just me. 3 days passed after Charla showed up. I thought it was over. I truly believed I had closed the door for good. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. I thought I had finally stepped out of her shadow, out from under the weight of her manipulations. But then came the letter, and it didn't come from her. It was tucked into my mailbox at Milo's place. No return address, just my name scribbled across the envelope in quick, messy handwriting. At first, I thought it was something from the realtor or a lawyer maybe connected to the house. But when I opened it, the first word made my stomach tighten. Raina. She wrote it. I almost threw it away on the spot. I didn't want anything from that woman. She was the architect behind so much of what had gone wrong. Whispering in Charla's ear, fueling the self-righteous fantasy that walking away without a conversation was somehow empowerment. But something about the tone of the first line made me pause. Curtis, you don't know me, not really, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But you need to know the truth because Charla won't tell you, and I can't carry it anymore. I read the whole thing in one sitting, and by the end, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Raina confessed that she hadn't just influenced Charla's decision to take a break. She orchestrated it. She'd been feeding Charla doubts for over a year, pointing out every minor frustration, turning small inconveniences into red flags. But it wasn't out of concern. It was jealousy. Apparently, Raina had been in love with Tyler, yes, the same Tyler, for years. They'd had some sort of brief fling before he ever met Charla. When he met my wife at that retreat and pursued her, Raina lost it. But instead of confronting Tyler or walking away, she did something more sinister. She pushed Charla toward him. She encouraged the messages, the reset week, the emotional distance, and she kept herself close to the process, pretending to be a friend while quietly fueling the destruction. She wanted Charla to fall, to implode, to be humiliated. She wanted Tyler to come crawling back after ruining something real. Raina's words were bitter and weirdly honest. She wrote that she hated how easy it was to manipulate Charla, how desperate she was to be seen as modern and independent. But what really hit me was the last paragraph. Curtis, you deserved better. I always saw it, but I told myself it wasn't my problem. I watched her hollow you out and smiled, because it made me feel better. But now, I feel nothing but disgust. Not with you, with me. I ruined you to hurt her, and it worked. I didn't know what to do with it. I sat on the porch for hours with that letter in my lap, trying to understand how I'd become collateral damage in someone else's quiet war. And then I realized I was never part of the game. I was just the board they played on. That night, I burned the letter in Milo's fire pit. Not out of anger, but because I wasn't going to let either of them live rent-free in my head anymore. Not Charla, not Raina, not Tyler. But just when I thought the storm was behind me, something else hit my inbox. A message from a name I didn't recognize. Caitlin Hughes. The email subject read, "I think we need to talk. It's about Charla, and it's important." I didn't open Caitlin Hughes' message right away. After everything I'd learned, after Charla's betrayal, Raina's confession, and all the months of emotional erosion, I didn't know if I had room for one more truth. But curiosity has a cruel voice, and by the next morning, I clicked. Caitlin's email was long, gentle, careful in its tone, like someone handling a fragile object they weren't sure should even be touched. She introduced herself as Tyler's assistant. But more importantly, she used to be Charla's friend. A friend from before Raina, before the seminars, before all the fake self-help and emotional theater. She told me Charla hadn't always been like this. That after her mother passed unexpectedly 2 years ago, something cracked. She started chasing validation in strangers, looking for something to numb the guilt of not being there during her mom's final weeks. Tyler showed up at exactly the right time, or the worst possible one. He gave her the attention she thought she needed, and Raina encouraged the rest. But then came the part that surprised me. Caitlin said Charla had recently tried to back out. Before the reset week, she told Caitlin she didn't want Tyler anymore, that she wanted to come home. But Raina pressured her to go through with it anyway, told her it was too late to turn back, that I wouldn't take her seriously unless she made a bold move. Caitlin said she tried to warn her, tried to get her to think clearly, but Charla was already too deep in the narrative they'd built around me. And then Caitlin wrote something I'll never forget. She made her choices, and she has to live with them. But I think you should know, part of her still loved you, even if she forgot how to show it. You didn't lose her. She lost herself, and then lost you. For the first time since all this began, I felt a strange peace. Not because I forgave her. I hadn't, and I might never. But because I finally understood something that had haunted me for weeks. It wasn't about whether I was enough. It wasn't about how soft or steady I was. It wasn't about what I did or didn't do. People project their pain onto the nearest thing that holds still. And I had held still for a long, long time. But now I was moving again. I didn't reply to Caitlin. I didn't respond to Charla's follow-up messages either. I didn't need closure from people who opened doors just to slam them later. Instead, I rented a small place near the water. I started rebuilding old machines again, this time for fun, not survival. I joined a local group that fixes up vintage games for children's hospitals. Dauber comes with me everywhere. He listens more than most people I know. And last week, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was the ring box. The ring was still in it. But this time, I didn't feel anything when I held it. I just smiled, closed the box, and slid it into a drawer. Because some chapters don't need a dramatic ending. They just need to end. Thanks for listening to my story here on Reddit Confessions. If you made it this far, tell me, what part of this journey stuck with you the most? Was it Raina's confession? Charla's plan? Or the moment I finally stood up? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget, sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom.